control, while colonialism is more about political control. Colonialism is almost always a consequence of imperialism. It involves hegemony, which is the dominance of one country over another. Spaniards were one of the colonizers of the Philippines, which means that they had political power and influence over the Philippines. A good example of this is the encomienda system, in which the Spanish king sent a gobernador general to rule over the Philippines in his place. More examples are the religious influence of Christianity and the economic and political systems like polyservicio and phylocracy.
We will let you watch a video, and can you give a one-word reaction to it afterwards?
Territorialization.
Romanticize.
Adventurous.
Exploitation. Boycott.
And now with that, colonialism is well and defined. As you saw, our feelings are well understood and shared as well.
And hey, since we got a few more minutes and one more word to tackle, what do you prepare for this one?
Oh, imperialism. Well, I think that's the most interesting because I asked it to be compared to colonialism.
Now that I think about it, what are the similarities and differences those two words have?
For this, we have to call an expert.
The main difference between imperialism and colonialism is that when you talk about imperialism, this is actually the driving force or the inspiration behind colonialism. It is the main goal that states seek to visualize or fulfill in order to expand an empire. On the other hand, when you talk about colonialism, this is the micro, whereas on one hand, imperialism is the macro level, this is the bigger picture, and colonialism is the smaller picture or the more specific version of imperialism. So imperialism is what countries seek to have or seek to promote. So in order to promote the ideal of imperialism, that is when countries or nations or states resort to colonialism. So when you talk about imperialism, this is the political ideology or the political orientation. Say for example, a country wants to create an empire. So in order to create an empire, that country might resort to the strategy of colonialism. So colonialism is when a country seeks to colonize, invade, conquer, or annex a different country in order to expand its territory or to build an empire. It's difficult actually to try to extract the effects of imperialism and colonialism because there's a very great similarity between the two of them. While some political scientists would say that the effects of imperialism are more long-term or more broad in nature, whereas colonialism has a more proximate or more immediate effect on the country being colonized. So what are these effects that we are talking about? Say for example, we have assimilation. Whenever a country is conquered, there is always the tendency for the conquerors to immediately impose their own culture, their own system on the country that they conquered. So the disadvantage is that if that conquered country already has an indigenous culture or way of life, then that indigenous culture or way of life might be exterminated in order to make way for the new culture that is being imposed upon them by their conquerors or by their host or colonizer. Okay? So another effect probably would be environmental degradation, because one of the main reasons why a powerful country might want to conquer another country is for the use. Consider the Filipinos' anger towards this animated picture about Magellan and Lapu-Lapu's sort of revisionist role. We call it revisionist because history books already have judged that Magellan was the one who went to the Philippines in order to conquer the country, and that Lapu-Lapu was the hero. But now comes along this animated movie that seeks to reverse that history. That's why it's called revisionist history. Now, can we attribute that to the Filipinos' post-colonial trait? Not necessarily, because remember that these Filipinos that are very vocal against that movie were not around during the time that the Spaniards were conquered the Philippines. So it would all depend on how well they were educated. Are their anger really an effect of colonialism, or were they taught to hate anything that is colonial? So that would be a question that can probably help us understand that better. Now, if we are trying to understand the root cause of our anger towards that movie, probably because it is human nature to want to defend what we believe in. The issue on whether or not we can blame our lack of national identity on our colonial past is highly debatable. Remember, there are countries that were colonized and yet were able to develop a strong sense of national identity, such as in the case of Singapore, which was conquered by the British, or in the case of Egypt, which was conquered by many different countries. However, in the case of Iran, which was never conquered, yet the Iranian identity still suffers today. There are countries that still have a problem with their own national identity even though they have never been conquered. And at the same time, there are countries who were conquered yet do not have problems with national identity. Now, the cultivation or development of a national identity is not totally dependent on whether or not we were colonized, but rather how well our culture, our identities were handed down from one generation to the other. So our educational system, our ancestors, our parents have a great hand in ensuring that our national identity is further strengthened and handed down from generation to generation. So nowadays, we have to stop blaming our historical past. Somebody once said that we can blame our history up to a present or up to a point only. From that point forward, we are the ones who are responsible for our own destiny. We are the architects of our future. So if we want to build a strong national identity, then we have to move forward. We have to strengthen our educational system. We have to consciously and deliberately inculcate in our young people the values of our nationhood, of our Filipino culture, of our Filipino history, and our way of life.
And with that, we have completed our goal in understanding those two words in under 10 minutes.
Indeed, and it made me realize how wrong the trailer was and why I felt it was so out of it.
I'm glad it did that for you.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of Cool and Cold Kids.
Where the cool things are the real world topics.
And that makes you cool. Ta-da-da.
Yeah.